Roger, go for deploy.
When you get down to it, everyone has to be aggressive with how they diet. But I think there's a way to be more educated on how to do it. And I think there's a lot of miseducation and people doing these crazy protocols that are so terrible for your body. Like, it's not a good idea to take a bunch of diuretics without water, without sodium, and supplementing with potassium.
Hey guys, welcome back to Adventure Fit Radio. Today, what we have for you, we have a great show with the wonderful Laurin Conlin. So, Laurin is a IFBB figure competitor. She's also she's got a bachelor in exercise science, and she's just a really well-rounded, lovely chick. She also has a really cute giggle, which you'll notice in the show. She's taken, so that's kind of going to come off a little bit inappropriate and creepy, but she's great. I had a great time chatting to her, and you guys are going to love it. Anyway, this show is brought to you by Quash Creative. Head to quashcreative.com and quote radio to get a free SEO report or a report on your current and existing brand. We're also brought to you by Audible. Check out audibletrial.com/ADVF radio to get one free audiobook and 30 days to check out what Audible is all about. If you're not on Audible, you should be. And last but not least, we are brought to you by Adventure Fit Travel. Head to Adventure Fit Travel, guys. If you head to our Facebook page at the moment until Friday, this show will be released on Monday. Until Friday, we're having a giveaway of one of our Bali trips. So we've got a bunch of trips that we've just released this year, and to celebrate, we've released this year in anticipation for next year. And to celebrate, we're giving away one ticket on our Bali trip. All you got to do is go and comment on the post, which is tagged at the top of our Facebook page. Comment winner, and you'll get the next steps to enter the draw. So that's pretty exciting. Get out there and have a look at that. Head to www.adventurefittravel for all things Adventure Fit related, and use the code word radio to get 10% off any and all trips. Here's Laurin. Alrighty guys, welcome back to Adventure Fit Radio. Today we are sitting here with the lovely Laurin Conlin. Before we throw over and welcome Laurin into the show, as usual, we're going to start with a little bit of Tommy's tribute.
Alrighty. Hey, welcome aboard, Laurin.
Hello.
Here we go. So, alrighty, I have done a cover of Tiny Dancer. Alright, this is my personal favourite of mine, and it's a little original rendition as well. So we'll see how we go. Yeah. Blackhead baby, powerlifting lady. She'll help you get your goals. Pretty eyes, genuinely attractive looking behind. She's an exercise scientist. So Laurin Conlin, you've made a stand in the IFBB Pro. I think I fucked the words. So looking on, what's next for you? We want to know just what you do. Welcome aboard.
Oh my gosh. Well, hello, you guys.
That was great.
So funny. I was like, when you first started saying it, I was like, wait, are they thinking about me?
Yeah.
I love it how...
What do you mean? I'm a horse. I'm a dude. I'm a guy.
I love it how...
I'm a little slow.
I love it how creepy you get when we have a good looking woman on the show, Tommy.
I get real weird.
Yeah.
I don't really serenade guys by saying genuinely attractive looking behinds. But I just, I'm just looking on Google.
I hope that wasn't too creepy for you, Laurin. It's just Tommy.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I am excited to be here despite some technical difficulties we've all dealt with.
Yes.
Keep that out of the show, Laurin. We'll cut that. It's good. It's good. We're joking. We finally did figure it out after some Skype technical issues. So anyway, Laurin, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, so I am an IFBB Bikini Pro. If you picked that up in the song, I have a master's in exercise science where I did some pretty cool research where it looked at flexible dieting versus a meal plan. So I looked at eating behaviors and weight loss and weight regain, all that jazz. I own a online coaching and consulting business where I work with clients one-on-one, whether they're non-competition or competition clients. I also do a ton of Skype posing consults and just do a lot of competition-based consults that way.
Nice.
I'm sponsored by a few companies, notably First Form and Celestial Bodies. So if you guys are you guys are all the way in Australia, so never mind.
Yeah.
So First Form, it would be a little bit expensive to ship over there, but Celestial Bodies might have some kind of international distribution in the future. They're a clothing brand, which doesn't affect you guys. Actually, they do have a pair of men's leggings, but they're women's leggings.
Great. We're in the leggings.
Yep.
We go both ways.
And what else? I'm terrible at introducing myself. Oh, I have a podcast with my friend Paul Ravella. It's called
Polly.
Old Polly, Redefine Healthy Radio. So if you guys are interested in another podcast, we do that. And what else? I'm trying to think. I do just traveling, seminars, speaking engagements, and me and my boyfriend have a small graphic T-shirt company.
Nice.
Cool. Very
Just a bunch of
Fucking hell.
Yeah, it's a lot of information for us to. It's enough to get us started anyway.
Yeah. Well, that was the show actually, Laurin. And,
yeah, I'm so bad at doing introductions, and endings are just like not my jam. But so there's a little word ramble about me.
It's good. So what led you into exercise science? Firstly,
so I started actually as a dietetics major.
Okay.
In my undergrad, and I was always interested in healthy eating and exercise. At the time, I was running track for all through high school and track and cross country, and I actually grew up with an eating disorder. So I'd been to dietitians before and was just interested in food. And I was like, wait, somebody you can make money off of telling people what to eat. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So kind of like most people, when you start college, university, you don't really know what you're doing. So I jumped into that, and then I was like, this really just isn't for me because of just the way that the courses are taught. You would think that things would be a little bit more evolved, but they really haven't as far as the academic side of things. So I decided to make the switch to exercise science, which was a lot more open-ended, and you can do pretty cool research with diets and, manipulating all that and including exercise as well. So I got my undergrad in that, did some undergrad research, I helped out with people's projects, and then I decided to do my master's. And again, my master's is in exercise science, but I was looking at how different types of diets affect, your weight loss and weight regain.
Yep.
But it's all under the context, of course, of resistance training. And our lab is pretty cool. We focus mostly on physique sports and physique athletes, which is not very common, obviously. So I fell into a pretty cool lab and got to use exercise science as a it's a very big umbrella kind of term for a degree. You learn about a lot of different things.
Yeah, my brother's doing it at the moment. Actually, he's just finishing up an exercise science degree. So yeah, I know through him obviously a lot of what you mean. It's very, very, very broad.
It's very broad, which is cool, because then you can really take it in any direction and specialize how you want, which I like. So, and there's actually there's a good amount of research, especially in the physique area and body composition area from Australia. So you guys probably know a lot about that, but it's not as common over in the States, and it's becoming more popular, but really there's only a few key people who are interested in this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Understandably, most research is done on actual disease states and things, like cancer, but for nerdy bodybuilders, there's a small group of people who are interested in it.
For sure. Hey, Laurin, can we touch back on, and I don't know how comfortable you are talking about it, but can we touch back on a point that I think is quite interesting, which is the
eating disorder.
You mentioned earlier that you had some sort of eating disorder when you were younger. Do you mind elaborating on that? Is it something you're comfortable talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm totally fine talking about that. So it started pretty young. I'd say around It didn't, whenever someone has an eating disorder, you don't just like wake up one day and have one. It's an eventual gradual building. So I would say from like 8 to 10, I just had kind of like probably disordered eating. And then after that, it kind of got really bad. And the peak was around like 12 to 13. And I was very, very thin. I was obviously very much restricting what I was eating. I was compulsively exercising. I grew up riding horses. And so I would be at the barn, which is very, taking care of a horse on top of, riding is one thing, but then you have to take care of the horse and do all these extra chores with it, and just around the farm. And then I would do on top of that, like extra running and stuff. And I would always just play it off like, oh, I like running. And then I got to the point where like I literally couldn't leave the house without doing like 500 sit-ups, like before just like weird, you just make up weird behaviors like that. So, and I was, pretty underweight for somebody who was at my height. And then finally, it got pretty obvious, and like, my eyes were sunken in and just, very, very thin. So saw a therapist and also a registered dietitian. And that's kind of how all that started. And it was a really interesting kind of progression going from being, very young, having this kind of eating disorder. Most people don't develop them until later. But having mine young, and then using exercise in a positive way, because at first people were very kind of concerned, understandably, when I wanted to start competing, because I'd really only fully recovered, I'd say probably at like 14, I was getting better. And then through high school, I was, track and cross country. So I was eating more, I was fueling myself properly, but still probably under eating a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
But not anorexic. Like it was a huge difference of like anorexia versus like I'm under eating probably a little bit. Yeah. And then once I found competing, that was kind of a initial scare with like my family and friends. They were like, oh, is this just another way so you can starve yourself? And it's like, no. This is actually like I have to like fuel myself properly, and in order to look my best. So now we all know that there are people who definitely massively undereat for very long periods of time, but in general, it's a lot healthier than I would say than a typical anorexic diet, which is very, very restrictive of just total calories and like not really any regard to sparing muscle and caring about how you perform in the gym. So. It's definitely been something that kind of shaped my whole trajectory in life, which is interesting. And, obviously when you go through stuff, you're like, oh, this is kind of shit, but it's good when you look back on it because that kind of got you far. So
absolutely. But can I ask where you think it came from? Was it the magazines you were reading? Was it something that you think you were, like, was there any external, was it external factors, or how did it all come about? Like, that's the most interesting thing to me, especially being such a young kid. Yeah.
So it's, I would say that anything that I've really struggled with in life is all internal. Without sounding like I'm crazy, I make things, you make things up in your head. So in my head, yeah, I'm actually crazy. But I always felt that I was bigger than everyone else. I had a lot of friends I'm just like a naturally like medium-sized person. I'm not overweight, but I'm not like super petite.
Yeah.
And I was always taller, so I was just like a normal sized person. But when I had a lot of friends who were like very petite, I was like, oh, I'm bigger than them. And then looking back, like I had other friends who were like heavier than me, but I of course didn't see that. I only saw like the smaller ones.
Yeah.
And I just remember, being like, oh, I'm getting bigger. And then I like, found like a tape measure and I was like, oh, well, this is what I look like. What if I eat less? Like, what if it goes smaller? And then it did. And then, you kind of pick up these habits. And then eventually it was just like small things at first. But then as most females know, if you're listening, before you get your period for the first time, you start gaining weight. That's a very normal thing. And then I was like, oh my God, I was already like watching what I was eating and weighing. And then I was like, oh, this is it. Like I can't get any bigger than this. So it was all internal. Like literally nobody ever made fun of me. Nobody ever called me fat. I mean, maybe they did and I just didn't hear it, but I don't think it was never like I was teased and I heard it. It was just like this internal, like I need to look a certain way because I'm deciding X. And a lot of people who are anorexic, they tend to have like perfectionist and overachiever kind of personalities. So I pretty much just funneled all of that into there. And it was like this, just like any disorder, it turns into this weird thing, like doing the crunches before I leave the house. Like who does that? But you develop these tendencies. And it just, I don't know, it kind of, that's where it started, but it was all just in my head. Yeah.
It's funny what kids think when they're so young. Like me, I didn't have an eating disorder, but I definitely had a slight body dysmorphia because I genuinely, as a kid growing up, I thought that the only way you would get a wife or a girlfriend or somebody who would love you, like I thought when I was probably like 5 to 10 years old, maybe not 10, 5 to 8 or something, I thought the only way was to have the most muscles.
Yeah.
Because like all the movies that I would watch at the time, like the hero was like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone,
Harry Potter,
yeah. all these kind of guys, and it was and like I said, it never became an issue for me. I didn't carry it on and get an eating disorder, but it was 100% for years. It was the only thing that I thought as a kid, and I could see how easily that would go the way of an eating disorder. Should I just have been a little bit unlucky? Someone might have said the wrong thing to me. You know, you could, like you say, it all starts from a small thing and becomes a big issue, obviously. So it's fascinating. Fascinating. So it's funny because guys always have that though. They have what I had, the body dysmorphia of looking in the mirror.
Too big.
Yeah. Like I need to get bigger. I need to get bigger. Yeah, girls, it's the other way around. So. Yeah, right. So,
but that really is just like the superhero complex of chicks having the skinniest waists and the biggest tits, and guys having the biggest arms and the, all that. Like that's just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. So that took you from into where were we at? You were at, you started getting into like actually healthy exercise, and that kind of changed your mind. You kind of started looking at yourself like, I suppose, like an athlete who needs to be fit and needs to be able to. You went from like, I suppose, would it be fair to say you went from aesthetics to performance in a way?
Yes, for sure. And before, like, the aesthetics were not even like to like look good. It was just like I want to be thinner. Like it was like this weird kind of thing. Like, but then definitely as I started track and cross country, and I, obviously I'd gone to therapy and learned a little bit more. And thankfully I have a family who like cares about me. So they were like on top of everything, whatever. So they kept me in check with things. So, maybe if I didn't have them or had that therapy, like, I don't know where I would have been or whatever, but very luckily I had all that and a good support system. And then when I turned to, once I got to high school and started running, and doing well, I was like, okay, I'm doing pretty good at this. Like I need to like be better, and started again fueling towards that kind of performance mindset and like, and then I started, with like, we're going to go to the weight room, and I was weak as shit, obviously, like everyone, when you first start working out. And I was probably like 16 when we started, like doing a little bit of working out. It wasn't like anything serious, but that would probably be the first time I started like weight training. And then through the course of my track career, I am very, very, very injury prone. I have been my whole life. And so I had many injuries during track and became like the poster child for cross training. But after that, I was like, man, I like really like this weightlifting thing like more than I like running actually. Yep. So I joined a gym. So like I was doing track, like I have my horse, and I was like trying to go to the gym as much as I could to like lift. And I would do spin classes like a few times a week. Like I was just like a nut. And I just like loved it. And then as soon as track was over, I was like, fuck this, I'm not running ever again. Gonna become a weightlifter. And then the first gym that I really joined, like the other gym I was at, like I was doing a little bit of stuff, but the first like real gym I joined was like this super bodybuilding centric old school gym. And so when you're 18 and like that's like your first gym. It was the summer before I went to college, so I didn't have jack shit to do, so I would just work out and eat and just do like work a little bit, but nothing like serious. I'm 18.
Yeah, that's good. That's what you want to be doing today, Dan.
Yeah, it was literally like, okay, I'm going to work some jobs. I'm going to go to the gym, I fell into this like bodybuilding culture, like male bodybuilding culture. And I thought every gym was like that, of course, like looking back, I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea how lucky I was to like be surrounded by these people. And so that kind of like planted that seed in my head. And then I saw my first show and I was like, holy shit, this is cool. And like, I want to look like these jacked girls. And at the time, this was when figure still looked almost like bikini looks now.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I want to do this. So that was kind of my first intro to real weightlifting, like very structured, like outside of track.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a pretty interesting first like real gym experience.
Yeah, just chucked in there with all the meathead dudes.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, that's how I've always trained. So it's either like meathead bodybuilders or powerlifters, and so that's how people. I'll like get interviewed, and they're like, how do you feel like being a woman in the weight room? And I'm like, I don't even think about it. Like it's just like why would I even? Literally, you guys will laugh at this. So when I started my undergrad at Florida State, which if for anyone who doesn't know, it's a very big university in the U.S. and it's a big party school. It's just like a huge school. It's like 50,000 people, and so I get to the gym, and this is in 2010. So it's, 7 years ago, way less girls weight trained. Like, honestly, like barely anyone was training. Right. So I get to the gym and they're like, oh, the girls section's over there. And I was like, the fuck? I'm like, the girl? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. And there was like a few dumbbells and like one cable and like a fucking bouncy ball. And I'm like, yo, I am not training here. Like, there's a whole fucking gym. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you should have said the fuck off section's over there.
Yeah.
Why don't you go sit? Why don't you go sit? Yeah, why don't you go sit there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, literally, we're at the jerking off section. Okay. So, yeah.
Oh, hang on. I'm going to go right there now.
Yeah. Which gym is this? I always get in trouble for jacking off in the gym.
I didn't know there was a section for it.
And so then literally after I go to that gym for like a year, that's like the school gym. And then I go to like where the real people work out, quote unquote, like my next year. And still there's like literally me and like one or two other girls, like pretty much like the whole time I'm there. There's like a few other people who come in and out, but like literally it was me and a few girls the entire undergrad. This is up to like 2014. And when my advisor called me for my master's, he was like, he's like, yeah, we have this weight room. I really want to do female physique research. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't know if you've looked around the gym lately, but like, there's not that many girls. He's like, I think it's picking up. He was like, he's very like forward thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, whatever. And then literally, I swear it's like in a year's time, like out of nowhere, it was just like girls everywhere weight training. And it became like okay for girls to weight train and not just like do cardio. And now we have people like doing only female physique research like in our lab. It's just because it's like there's so many people who want to do it. It's just crazy how it's evolved like over time.
Cool. So when you say female physique research, like what do you like? Give us an example of like a study that you're doing or that you've done, or like, what do you mean that?
So there's a study that we actually just did. It's going to be submitted pretty soon. So it was aspiring physique competitors, so girls who haven't competed before but have given it thought. Mm-hmm. And so we designed either a bikini or a figure training plan, which bikini focused a little bit more on the bikini muscles, which would be like shoulders, glutes, hamstrings. And then figure was more of a balanced approach, and they actually bench pressed versus overhead pressing.
Gotcha.
And so, we train people in the lab, they're on a certain type of diet, and then we would control the training, and then we would manipulate the diet. So like, okay, how, different type, this one specifically was high or low protein, and how that affected body composition. So that's the kind of research that we're doing. Mm-hmm. And it really is, pretty new as far as research goes. Mm-hmm.
And is there like pretty like does the research suggest? Oh, well, I guess this far that there are pretty objective variables with this stuff. Like what I'm trying to say is, are people just, is every sort of body different, and a little bit more protein with me is super different to a little bit less protein for you or something? Or are there pretty objective things that you can manipulate that actually lead to performance increase for this sort of stuff?
This one, for this study in particular, there was a huge difference in the high versus low protein group as far as how much lean body mass was accumulated. And we use ultrasound, so you can measure it. It measures fat thickness and then also lean body mass. So there was a statistical differences between the two groups, and there was about a 400 calorie difference per day in the higher protein group versus the lower protein group, but they eat no more body fat. So really interesting. So there's still, obviously research coming out all the time about what is optimal and like what should you do. And we have the ability at our lab to run studies like that don't necessarily need like a ton of funding. It's just like, hey, can we run these cool studies like how we want to? Yeah. And that that was one that we just did. Now there's going to be other ones, and a lot of them are mixed. It's not just females, it's males and females.
Yes.
Like my study was males and females. My one of my best friends is actually she goes to the same school now. She's doing hers on like refeeds. So like in a caloric deficit, like does how you implement refeeds like affect your body composition? Like that's stuff that's never been looked at. So that's kind of what we mean with physique research. So people who are interested in changing their body composition favorably.
and in a healthy way, I suppose, because people like yourself who are out there competing in IFBB, you must have a really huge leg up and advantage in the way of competitiveness, but in the way of keeping it healthy and beneficial for your body, basically, because a lot of people out there don't have an exercise science degree. And I mean, surely is there, with all this trying to get your body fat down so much, coming into competition, just the general ways people train and eat, do you see heaps of, and this is, I'm not sure, I'm obviously leading this question in a certain direction, but I might be totally wrong here. Do you see problems in the way that guys and girls do approach their IFBB career in the way that they mainly eat, mainly diet and stuff coming into competitions?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just IFBB. It's all the organizations. Honestly, it's everywhere. I would definitely say within the past few years, things have substantially gotten better.
Yeah.
When I turned pro 3 years ago, it was like, oh, Laurin is a flexible dieter and she turned pro. Oh my God. Like that was like a thing. And like now it's not even a thing because there's a lot of people who do this. Right. And, when it really comes down to it, the meat and potatoes of contest prep, you're going to be eating clean. So it's just like the way, it's the semantics, right? It's getting to have the choice of, I don't want broccoli today, I want green beans, or whatever. So at some point, I don't think there's a huge disconnect, because at the end, when you have to get aggressive and you have to get body fat off of your ass, you have to diet.
Yeah.
But I think there is a more appropriate. Sorry, there sounds like there's like a plane landing over my house.
Yeah, I can hear a plane as well. Yeah.
Holy shit! I was like, what is going on over here?
No, it's definitely a plane.
Wow. Okay. Sorry. I have a very small brain. I was like, hopefully they definitely hear this.
So the thing about anorexia is, a plane. Come on,
I
Laurin.
think.
Do you like lamp, Laurin?
Yeah. I really love the lamp.
Yeah, go on.
I think that there is when you get down to it, everyone has to be aggressive with how they diet. But I think there's a way to be more educated on how to do it. And I think there's a lot of miseducation, particularly around like peaking and people doing these crazy protocols that are so terrible for your body. Like it's not a good idea to take a bunch of diuretics without water, without sodium, and supplementing with potassium. Like the fact that some people still do that like blows my mind. I'm just like, you literally want to give yourself like an arrhythmia. Like you don't have like cardiac problems.
Do people fuck themselves up in lead ups to comp and stuff like that? Is there people that like pull out from comps regularly, and do people ever actually like harm themselves?
I mean, there's been people who've died obviously at shows. Now whether it's just because of that or not, it's not, like you can't really just pinpoint one thing. But it's, I've seen people, I've literally been backstage with people who are like shaking and like are like on the floor, and I'm like trying to give them water. They're like, I can't drink. And I'm like, you're fucking stupid and you deserve to like fucking pass out. Like seriously,
you join my online training program.
Like, it's like, oh my gosh. And so there is some of that information still out there. I try to surround myself with people who are at least, or not doing that, or at least are more open-minded. So I feel like it's less, but I still hear the crazy stories. And the thing is, what happens a lot of times too with these big teams, right, is so like say X team has a few like high profile clients, right? So X team will be giving high profile clients a little bit more attention, a little bit more, detail, and maybe they're not doing the normal just cookie cutter shit program. But then that gets other people to sign up for their programs, right? And then those people, they're thinking that they're going to get that kind of treatment, and they get the same just bullshit. And I literally just talked to a client who's working with one of the biggest teams right now, and I was like, oh, maybe this person's changed their methods because they've had all this success recently, and it's all just fucking a front because she's telling me what she's doing, and she's an NPC, which over here is the amateur division, and she's just doing total shit, and I'm like, oh God, it just kills me. But that's still what's going on. Like, and again, everyone has to get aggressive. Everyone has to do cardio. Everyone has to diet. But the way that things, there is a better way to do things. So I think it's getting better, but there is still a lot of misinformation, and there's still a lot of people competing. I think the biggest thing, not even the diets, it's that people don't stop dieting. And I used to be that person too. And I know a lot of people listening can probably relate. It becomes like this rat race to try to turn pro. And then once you turn pro, you're trying to get to Olympia. So it becomes all this like compete. And all these big teams can push you to compete. And as a competitor, the more you compete, the more the judges see. The more the judges see, the more they recognize you, and the more they're going to look at you on stage.
Yeah.
So it's just like a nature of humans and their unconsciousness, like you just don't even realize it, but you're like, oh, I've seen that person a million times. Let me look at them more.
Yeah, for sure.
So it becomes this kind of shit show of always competing, never taking time off, and always being at these low body fats and these really low calories and having these few week splurges. And then you're trying to like get all that off. And it's so sad when I see people who literally their maintenance is like 2 hours of cardio and like maybe a sweet potato, and you're like, oh God. Yeah. And that's true. Like that's still true. So that's kind of where the shit comes in. It's less about like the little nitty gritty details of like, do you flexible diet or not? It's more of just like the pressure that people put on themselves to always compete, to always be super lean. And we all mess up, so no matter how good someone looks, there are times where they go off plan. But then when those people go off plan, their bodies are like shit. So then it's just like this huge compounding effect. And then you see girls retire after like a few years, so you're like, well, that explains that. Yeah.
But that's the hardest thing as well, from what it sounds like, is again, especially with the rise in social media as well, with something like the IFBB, like you guys are always on show. Like like you said before, the more judges recognize you, people just naturally look at people that are looked at more. So you want to have your social media pumping, which means you always want like a nice shot, which means you always got like you're kind of always on stage. Like how? I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, how do you manage that?
It's very challenging, and I'm still learning like every day how to balance all this. So I've actually been going through like a weird kind of thing too, like the past few months anyway, just because I didn't compete at all this year, and I kind of like lost my student identity, and I also lost my competitor identity this year. So it was kind of like this weird year of like, what am I doing? Yeah. And I'm working on my business and I'm growing that, and I'm really, really happy. But it's just been a transition. Yep. Social media puts a huge amount of pressure on competitors to live up to that competitor look and that lifestyle, right? And it's not fun to post pictures when you're not lean, especially in a fucking pose and a bikini. Like you're just like, no, I don't want to do this. But I really forced myself to become vulnerable and to open up to people, because I was like, listen, like I know other people are going through this. There's the top elite percentage that aren't, but for everyone else who's normal, we all go through this. So last year, actually, for my prep, and I'm taller. I'm 5'7", and I'm naturally like, again, hold size pretty well, but I lost like 28 pounds from my prep, and it was over 28 weeks. But I documented that whole thing, and people at first were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe like you're posting all these pictures. It's so great. Like nobody else does this. And I'm like, yeah, but like there are plenty of people who go through this. Like, and there's nothing worse to me in life than when you see somebody post a picture and then the next day you see them in person. You're like, bitch, you don't look like that. Yeah. And you're like, and I don't care. Like, okay, so obviously like a picture is going to be like good lighting, like good hair, whatever. But like the fact that like people are only post pictures of them being super lean from like photo shoots that they've like stocked up. Yeah. And I'm like, why don't you just show what you look like? Like you look great right now. Yeah. Like why would you not try to show that? So there becomes this weird pressure on social media for sure to only post the good stuff and only post when you're lean, because I'll be honest, that's what people comment the most on and people like the most.
That's right. It's real. It's real. And you connect with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it's been, it's definitely hard. It's not easy to like open up to like, hey, I weigh this much or I'm, this size right now when you're expected, quote unquote, to be a certain size. But I've just kind of learned to diversify myself from just being a competitor.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of helped me too. Like if I was only competing, then yeah, there's a different pressure too to be a certain way, but I have a bunch of other things going on as well. So I think that has helped me be able to deal with it better and just kind of show a more multi-directional kind of approach on my social media.
I think it's really important for you, especially like coming from your background. I think it's the right thing to do. Someone that's had an eating disorder growing up, and but to show reality on social media, because this is one of the problems that I have with A, social media, and B, the fitness industry. And it's not a problem with the fitness industry, but I think it's mainly because of social media. That I think young kids can see people in the fitness industry and they see stage photo, and that might be like the little girl like that might have these images in her subconscious that she might not know, but then she just ends up in the position you're in, where she's starving herself and needs to be that whatever it is, 3% body fat or whatever. I think it's so dangerous in the whole, and this goes for all social media. This goes for people that are out there doing good, playing basketball, people that are striving to be, want to be a fucking movie star. And they say, like, it's that 15 seconds of the perfect part of your day or the perfect look or a photo that you've taken. I think to actually put some reality in there and some negative parts of your life and some real truth in there, it's so important. I think just mainly for young people, mainly for young people that are so impressionable growing up in this like social media age. And you're a perfect example of somebody who's doing it right, which is because obviously you know what the fuck you're doing with like the way you eat, the way you train, which not many people do. And you're also willing to put up, both sides of the story, which is super important as well. I think the fitness industry owes it to everyone to do that, because
definitely
you guys are leaders to so many people out there. You have to do it the right way.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that there's a lot of positive that can come from social media depending on how you spin it. And for a long time I looked at it as like, oh, I don't care about this, or I'm not going to do this, or whatever. Like I looked at it as like, oh, this isn't important. But then I started to realize that like I could reach a lot more people that way, hopefully, that I would possibly never meet. I've been to Australia once, but like there's going to be a bunch of people who are in Australia who I never see or meet again, right? And maybe like my photo or the caption like resonates with them, and then they see it, so I really think that it's important to put out positive messages like that, but also put out real stuff and realize that competing there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons to it. And if you are trying to compete year round, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And I've been there, which is why I can say it, and you're going to find yourself in some serious metabolic trouble. And then that leads obviously to some psychological trouble, because you always hold yourself to this certain look, and then you become like depressed because you don't look like that. And, and it's just so, I had someone today, I get this all the time. Like, oh, I was looking at my old prep pictures, and I'm like, stop. Why are you looking at your prep pictures? First of all, we're not even in prep.
Yeah. That's not 1948 anymore, dickhead.
Yeah. It's like, we're not even, that is not even remotely what the goal is right now. Like, you're going to look at that, and I can look at my prep pictures and go, man, I looked great, and I can actually like say like, okay, I know I looked good, but I know what I know how I felt being there. I'm very realistic with it, right?
Yes.
And I remember taking those pictures, like I'm going to pass out right now, but like I look fucking good. Look at my abs, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas people look back at their photos and they don't see that. They just see like the glory, and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to look like that again.
Yeah,
I'm like,
totally.
Oh, we're not even there mentally. Second of all, don't even try to compare yourself to your photos until you're like a few pounds out from stage weight, because honestly, like you're always going to compare it like you're negatively.
Yeah.
And I find that it's so easy to do that. And I just, obviously I can't speak to men as much, but for females, it's particularly prevalent just because, again, the ideal look for females is either like tight waist, super curvy, or you have to be like muscular and lean and like really tight and tiny, so. And if as soon as people feel like they're out of that, they're like, oh my gosh, like I look terrible and people are going to judge me on this. And I only coach women typically. I've coached a few males, but I would say like 98% females. Yeah. So this is literally what I deal with every day.
Yeah.
And that's with the posing and all that sort of stuff as well?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I only pose, obviously girls. I wouldn't know how to pose a guy to save my life, but,
That's probably a fair point.
I've diet, guys are actually really, I find a lot easier to diet just because guys, if a guy can buy into listening to me,
Yes.
then he'll probably do whatever I say.
Yes.
But
yes.
buy-in is where you have to get them right. But they're actually very easy to, like, they're like, I'll be like, oh, do this. They're like, okay, did that. And then I'm like, wow, there's no other comment. There's no other, like,
Yeah.
there's no,
The
like,
guy's probably got drool hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah.
It's probably like a,
So just do this sort of butt sort of pose if you can. Can you show me the butt pose again for the 48th time? Where's that jerk off area in the gym again?
Hey,
CrossFit jerk off.
Laurin, so do you obviously quite serious about what you do. How do you stay? What are some of the things that you do that allow you to stay motivated, stay on top of your training? I mean, that's the battle for everyone in no matter what they're doing, I suppose, is staying consistent. Like, what do you do? Do you battle through? Do you battle through periods of low motivation? And if so, what are your go-tos?
Oh, fuck yeah. Oh, I mean, seriously, like, that's, people always try. That's the other thing on social media. Like, oh my God, I love working out. It's my favorite part of my day every day. I love eating this fucking meal prep. But you're like, no, like, I know you don't, like,
I know you hate me.
like, there's a lot of days I do, but there's fucking days where, like, I'd literally rather do anything besides work out. Or there's days where I literally want to do anything besides eat the meal that I prepped,
Yeah.
And for certain days, depending on what my goals are, you just gotta, suck it up and do it. I've been doing this for so long, and I've always, that part of it just kind of becomes like, even if I feel like shit and I don't want to go to the gym, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to go. And then a lot of times, like, if I have like a friend that's going to be at the gym, or like my boyfriend's like, hey, we need to go to the gym, like, it's not like an option, and I'm like, fuck, okay, right.
That's great.
So, but there's sometimes where, like, I'll just be like coasting through workouts, like, they're not great. And then what I've really found to be helpful to kind of break through those periods, because we all have them, like, there's all times where, like, you don't want to wake up, when you need to wake up, you don't want to work out when you need to work out, there's all these. What I found really helpful when you're going through those slumps is to try to do something new, no matter what it is, whether it's go to a new gym. So, like, maybe even like buy a day pass somewhere, right? Or like for the week, like, hey, can I get a week pass here? Like, try a new like setting. Mm-hmm. If you, really get pumped up with music, like different, like, music. Or be like, hey, like, I know when I'm really drained during prep, having someone there with me can really help. Just having like a physical person like training with me.
Yeah, for sure.
It just, it helps because they're like looking at you. You're like, okay, I got to do this.
It's like an accountability partner.
Yeah, and so you can have that, or switch up your training. So, for the most part, I would say that I typically do around the same kind of training, mostly year round, right? But there are periods where I'm going through shit and where I'm like, I'm just going through the motions. I don't want to be here. And then, you just kind of have to radically change up your program. Like, I did that literally for 3 weeks, and I'm on week 4 of now going back to something else. And like literally just 3 weeks of like a radically new training program made me feel like a complete person.
That's great.
And it's so crazy because at first I was like, oh, this is different. Whatever, I'll just try it, But then I literally was doing it and I was like, holy shit, like, I feel so much better and I'm like out of this weird rut. So you just have to force yourself, I find, when you are in those periods, to just do it and to try something new in some capacity. That usually really, really helps me. And helped me recently because I was in a weird rut because I've been off and on injured, basically, not off and on injured for like a year. And so it's just been like shit for like a year, my training, and kind of like going to the gym like, oh, what can I do today? Probably nothing, one of those kind of attitudes.
Yeah.
And so that kind of wears down on you after a while. I'm kind of like, why am I here? But then I tried this new thing, didn't hurt, switched it up completely, and now I'm kind of back on track. And it's funny you asked that question because I literally just went through that.
Yeah, it's great. I'm actually going through it at the moment. Me and Tommy were talking about before the show, like we've been religious, 5-6 day a week trainers, and we're both kind of going through a little bit of that. It's funny with me because I've been training at a powerlifting gym. I've always been a weightlifter in the past for a few years, and then just been doing a bit of powerlifting, but mainly was just doing it for the social side of it. But I was training hard, and then it's funny because at the moment I can still drag myself to the gym, because I love everyone in there. It's just banter for me. It's the best. I catch up, have a great time. It's like my happy place. But it's funny because I'm still in the rut because when I'm at the gym, I do fuck all.
Yeah, I know. You just do it in the jerk-off section every time.
Yeah, it's really funny. I'm at the gym, but I'm still in a little bit of a mental rut with my training. But as you say, like, it definitely comes and goes for me, and I'm still able to do bits and pieces, so I'm not a total bin.
Yeah, I would say maybe like for anyone listening, or for you, I would maybe just honestly, like I said, like radically change it for like 2 to 4 weeks. And basically what I did was a kind of aerobic based strength training is essentially what I did. Yeah. And a lot of it was not for reps. Everything was timed. So that was different because normally I'm like counting. Everything was for time, and it was all resistance training. So whether it was with bands or it was with weights, but I was very, very little rest. So I was getting these killer workouts 5 to 6 days a week that were like 30 to 40 minutes. And I was sweating my ass off, out of breath, but I didn't leave feeling like totally beat up and like, crushed. And it was basically like full body every time you did it. It was more like athletic movements. And I honestly did that for 3 weeks and I feel so much better. So it's, I don't know.
You're talking about like I was
is that similar to CrossFit?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing a F45 because I've done CrossFit for years and I've kind of like, there's a gym around the corner that I got fired from back in the day. There's a couple that I'm
for
just
being in the jerk-off section too much.
And then there's an F45 around the corner. I've never done F45. I've got a bunch of mates down there. So that's actually kind of what I was thinking, Laurin, I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go try something different, smash it out. And then it'll still be in the gym, I'll catch up with some other mates that train at that gym. Yeah, it's great advice, I think. It was
great for me. I knew what I was doing every time I walked in. I didn't have to think. I would just set everything up and I would set the timer and everything would be timed, little rest in and out. And I was like, man, this is great. It was just like a total change up from like my typical, bodybuilding stylish workouts. And so I don't know, for anyone listening who's going through a rut, maybe try something like that.
Yeah, it's good. That's good advice. Hey, I would just, as we were talking about social media, Laurin, just was flicking through your social media on the computer on your Instagram. I noticed you've got the subtle art of not giving a fuck there. I just read that myself. What did you think?
I was way more impressed actually than I thought I would be.
Did you think the first chapter? I was as well. Did you think the first chapter it was just like an exercise for Mark Manson to kind of? I felt like he was just trying to prove like how cool he was.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I was like, it was just like lots of, and then after the first chapter, I was kind of like, not sure. And then like second, third, fourth, fifth, like all the rest of the book was epic.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I picked it up and so we just had like a pretty bad hurricane over in Florida. Yeah. And my mom had it and I was like, oh fuck, I'll just read this. I've heard it's pretty good and I love reading. And I literally picked it up with the intentions of it being like all right. And then I was so blown away. Like you said, the first like chapter or two, I was kind of like, whatever, I'll keep reading it. And then it literally got so fucking good. Yeah. And I was just so impressed with how simple the message was, but how powerful it was, and ultimately how well he wrote it. Yep. And I'm kind of a book snob because I've read a lot of books. So I'm very particular about the style and how they like present it. So like anything that like Malcolm Gladwell writes, you're going to know that it's like amazing.
I just bought my first Malcolm Gladwell book last week. I haven't started it yet.
Which one?
The Tipping Point.
Okay. I haven't read that one yet, but Blink and Outliers are great. And then I feel like I've read another one too.
Yeah, I've heard he's really good.
But he's awesome, and he's just like a really good storyteller while making it informative. But so the same thing with that book, I was, like I said, pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to read, but got across the concepts, and then also, like I wanted to keep reading it.
Have you read 10% Happier by Dan Harris?
No.
You should read that.
So good.
It's very much like, I feel like everything that you just explained about why you like Mark Manson is the same reason I like Mark Manson and I like Dan Harris, because it's like a self-help book. Not self-help, but like self-development, I suppose. But
it's a personal growth book.
Yeah, personal growth.
A memoir.
To a degree. But it's more written by a regular bloke. Yeah. In these two cases, that you kind of just straight 100%.
Not like a guru.
Yeah, not like when you read, Eckhart Tolle, for example, like The Power of Now or something like that. You would love, if you like Mark Manson, you'd love Dan Harris, 10% Happier. I read that recently as well. Okay. Very, very similar writing. Not writing style, but like relatability, You're just like, this is cool. This is just like somebody's personal story and how they think of things. It's just I totally know what he means, or totally know, I feel that.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll look into that. I love reading, and so for anyone listening, I posted about this book a bunch, but probably my favorite. So typically I'll read kind of like self-development or business or psychology type books. And because that's like, something that I'm obviously really interested in and I deal with literally on a daily basis. But and most of the time books within the like eating space, I don't find very credible or like actually backed by anything. So I read it a few months ago. It's called The Hungry Brain. And the guy is he's a PhD and he does research, obesity research. And it's very easy. Well, not very easy. It's easy to read for sciencey stuff.
Yeah.
He explains things very well. And it is so interesting. Like I literally was reading and I was like, oh my God. And I'd be like, holy shit. And I would like tell people and they were like, okay, it's not that cool. And I'm like, like look up. And he's like, okay. And I'm like,
but Dad, it is.
And I've talked about it like a bunch, and I have so many like comments and messages of people like, I got the Hungry Brain. It's amazing. Thank you. So like, it is really, really, really cool. And it's actually like a diet / brain, book. So it's not, it's actually like helpful in that area. And like I said, I don't usually read many books in that space because they're usually from people who are not necessarily credible.
Yep.
Or, stuff like it's like I don't need to read a how to diet book from Joe Schmo, like I don't need to read that. So this is just talking about like research and like how your basically brain is wired to eat certain ways and like want you to do certain things. So really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Laurin, we know we have to get you out of here at some point. Do we want to throw to 6 from 6? It's a bit of a rapid fire finish to the show. 3 questions from me, 3 questions from Tommy.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for it? Don't sound too excited, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. Are you ready? Yeah, I guess I am, yeah.
I get like super nervous with like this kind of stuff.
Oh, you should be.
You should be nervous.
You should be, yeah.
You should be very nervous. Yep.
We're bringing the thunder. Here we go. So first question is, what is your favourite travel destination on the planet? Somewhere that you've been that you just recommend above all else?
Well, you guys are going to laugh, but it's Melbourne.
Oh, yes.
Really? Nice one. When were you over here? Were you over here for one of the expos?
No, I've never actually been here.
I was over there, not this past Arnold, but the one before, so like a year and a half.
Yep.
And I was over there so we went over for the Arnold, and then it was a tour with Lane, Eric Helms, Paul, and me. And we went to Melbourne, Perth, and Sydney and spoke and did like camps and seminars all there.
Yeah, great. Melbourne's awesome. We live in I'm in
Melbourne
Port.
is my favorite.
Yeah, it's the best. I live in Port Melbourne, which is like the most closest like beachside suburb to the city. I'm pretty much in the CBD on the beach. Melbourne's it's just epic. It's a great time to be there in Melbourne too when the Arnold's on. That time of year, so
perfect.
yeah, that's great. So my second question is your dream travel destination. So top of the bucket list, somewhere that you haven't been that you're just absolutely keen to get to.
Yeah, so I've always heard about people going to like Bali and stuff, and it just looks like so magical. But I've also heard that it's like super hot, humid, and like bugs everywhere. So I'm like, not really sure about all that.
Yeah,
kind of like
good.
That's like a huge turn off to me. But I'm trying to think. Either like I don't know, like Greece, like that kind of area.
Oh yeah.
Like that kind of by the water, but not necessarily maybe like as hot and stuff as like Bali. Like totally different, obviously climates. But either Bali or Greece, I would really like to go, and I haven't been to either of those places. So,
well, Adventure Fit Travel's going there in April and June, so feel free to join us, Laurin. By free, I mean pay.
Everything off free.
Yeah,
pay the full amount.
10% off if you use the code word radio, and then passes your credit card details and you're in.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 of the best places, 2 of my favourite spots. I've been to Bali 10 times. If that,
oh really?
Yeah.
Super hot.
Well, I actually genuinely have been there the last 5 times, not of my own accord. I had a family holiday, a best friend's wedding, a mate's 40th birthday party that I drunkenly told him I would go to, and then twice with Adventure Fit. But I've been there 5 times of my own accord before that. Yeah, it's great. It's really good. You just got to have a little bit of inside information because there's a couple of spots that you don't really want to go to. They're more like the touristy places that everybody goes to, and everybody gets the wrong idea of Bali. So if you ever do
the wrong idea of Australia.
Yeah, that's right. So if you ever do make it there, make sure you send me a Facebook message, and I'll tell you the places not to go
and the credit card details.
Everywhere else that you'll find will be great. There's just a couple of places that devalue the whole Bali thing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So my last question, though, is any books that you like to recommend now? I know you just mentioned the healthy brain, but
hungry brain.
Hungry brain, that's the one.
The healthy brain.
You can find the healthy
art of not giving a healthy brain.
You can find the healthy brain on www.nowhere.com.
Yeah.
But
123 Flat Street.
Any books you recommend?
That's a good one. Suggestible You is really, really good as well. That's from Eric Vance. And he's just a really interesting person. I would highly suggest listening to his podcast with Tim Ferriss. Cool. It was really good, and then it got me interested in the book, and the book was amazing. So that's Suggestible You, and it's all like on like placebo research, and again, kind of like brain stuff, but I don't know, it's just really interesting. Cool. And so that one, So Good They Can't Ignore You, that's probably one of my top 3 favorite books. I absolutely love that one, and it's basically like how just living through like the passion hypothesis is total bullshit, and how you actually have to have like a bunch of things to back that up. And which is very counter to today's culture, just like, just do what I want. And then you just hope it works out. And that's obviously, we all know, doesn't work out.
Yep.
So it's a very interesting book, and kind of shows the other side of that argument, and really gives practical, informative things. And then I really liked Blink from Malcolm Gladwell's like most recent one. I thought that was really, really interesting. So I would definitely just suggest any book from Malcolm Gladwell. But that one was the most recent one I read from him.
Cool. Tommy, you're up.
Alrighty. So, Miss Conlin, what do you like to do in your spare time when you have some downtime?
I don't know. Well, whenever people ask me this question, I'm just like, I'm not really sure. But I,
fuck you.
For the most part, I'm either, honestly, because I work for myself, and everything I do is like a weird outsourcing of my, work in a way. Yes. Whether it's like I love reading, but like I'm usually reading to like try to like better myself, to like somehow become like a better coach. Obviously entertainment too, but I would probably say traveling is one of the coolest things that I used to really undervalue it because my parents, we've traveled a decent amount, and I was always like, oh, I don't really need to like go on these vacations. But before, we used to just kind of like do vacations. But now that I travel for work, for something, right, I'll try to go somewhere that I like and then explore around it, right? So like around actually being there. So traveling to different places and just kind of just like seeing how other people do things is just interesting to me. Like I competed last year in Italy, which was just cool in and of itself. Awesome. And then just kind of like seeing things afterwards, like it's just like so interesting how things are different. So I would say probably like the most non-business thing that I do that's like fun and enjoyable would be traveling and just, I don't know, just seeing new shit. You guys get
No, exactly the same. Yeah. No. And so what about someone you look up to, or someone that inspires you? Tom Ahern of Entropy Radio, absolutely. But someone who inspires you, who's like a role model.
Oh man, this is like the other awkward question. Like I literally I feel like I like can't answer, because then if I like say someone, then I'm gonna be in the shower later and be like, fuck, that's not who I meant. Yeah. And
all he's gonna be there.
Yeah, like I would just say, like, in general, people that I look up to as like a general consensus are people who are just like good people, even if they have like influence. Which I know sounds like crazy, like, oh, okay, but like no, like that's something that's like noble, because there's a lot of people, especially in this industry, who aren't like that. And I would say that really anyone I look up to is somebody who's built something that's successful for themselves and for others, and is still like a good human being.
Sure. Yeah.
So I can think about, a few people like that. So I don't, again, like naming names that I'm like, oh shit, I meant this person, I meant that person. But I would say that, those are qualities I look up to in people.
For sure.
Not just one person.
And finally, if you could invite 3 people to dinner, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Oh man. Okay. So this is something that I've like pondered over.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have to make it people who I don't know, because otherwise, then again, it would be like, oh, well, I know this person or whatever. So people I don't know, I've always loved Nirvana, and just somehow been like weirdly infatuated with like Kurt Cobain. Like I just feel like he's like an interesting person. So I feel like he would be a really cool person to have there. Obviously, he's dead.
True. 100%.
Yeah, unfortunately he's dead, but I just feel like he'd be like a cool person to like have at dinner, right?
So who would what would your favorite song be by Nirvana?
What?
Favorite song by Nirvana?
Oh, favorite song? Oh man, Heart Shaped Box probably.
Oh no. What about this one?
Honestly, most of their music.
Polly wants a cracker. That's it.
Tommy, I could tell. I took my headphones off then because I could tell Tommy. He had his guitar in his hand.
I was up and about.
He pulled his guitar and he's like, "So what would happen to me? Oh, not Polly wants a cracker. Well, I'll play Polly wants a cracker anyway."
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Heart Shaped Box. You mean Heart Shaped Polly?
And then who else did I have? So I think it would be. Oh shit! I had. Tim Ferriss. I feel like Tim Ferriss is. Love him or hate him, I think he is an extremely smart person who has an eclectic wealth of knowledge.
Word, for sure.
Which I think is super. Like he'd be the coolest person to sit down with because he knows literally everything about fucking everything.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But don't you think he'd also be a massive know-it-all? It's like, fuck, I'm just trying to eat my vegetables, man. Well, the funny thing about vegetables is... No, I'm joking.
I don't know. I just feel like he'd be really cool to have.
He'd be amazing.
And then
he'd be amazing.
I also, The Rock, I feel like is just The Rock, who
The
doesn't
Rock would be sick.
Best dude in the world.
He's just pretty epic all around. He's just a good. He'd be somebody I look up to. He's just a good dude who's built himself from nothing and is still an amazing human being. So I feel like he would have really cool stories. And then I was actually talking to my boyfriend about this, and then he was naming off all these only dead people and just really influential people. And then he said Einstein, and I was like, oh man, he would be the fourth person. I feel like.
Yeah.
Because I probably wouldn't even be smart enough to invite him to dinner. I'd be like, "Whoa, bro, what are you saying?" But
yeah.
Maybe he would just talk, and I would just absorb some knowledge from him.
Oh fuck!
I'd love to see The Rock and Einstein.
Cool
The Rock and Einstein just going head to head.
So Albert, what's your name? It doesn't matter what your name.
But yes, that would be my very interesting dinner party.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, Laurin, that's awesome. Hey, where can people find you? And anything you want to plug, now is the time. Go for it. All
right. So my website, www.laurinconlin.com. If you spell my name right, you'll probably find it. So it's Laurin. All my social media is at Laurin Conlin. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that jazz is at Laurin Conlin. Again, spell it with an I. And then I have the podcast with Paul, like I mentioned, Redefine Healthy Radio. If you guys are interested in anything like health, fitness, training, nutrition, psychology, just kind of all. It's not really pigeonholed into one thing. It's more so everything. And then I also have a new cool project coming out, which isn't out yet, but I will post about it soon, that me and one of my other friends, Celeste, are doing. Celeste Bonin, she owns Celestial Bodies, and we're doing a cool project together that's going to be more just life-based. Awesome. But basically we're going to be talking about all the things that other people don't like talking about. So that's coming out soon too. So if you guys follow me, you'll see me post about that. But yeah, there we go.
Sweet. So you kind of untabooing the taboo with that last one.
Yeah, that's kind of her goal, because we both, if you guys don't follow her, she's awesome too. Cool. I don't know, we're both very similar in the fact that we will say whatever we want, and we don't really care. We don't really get embarrassed about things, and we just kind of are very we'll just say whatever. And a lot of people try to hide that kind of stuff, we talked about in the beginning, hide stuff on social media or just how they live their life, and we're just both not like that at all. So we thought this would be a cool project for you to get to do together. So
totally, that's just something that resonated with me when you said it. Bill and I, we try to pride ourselves on being a ridiculously politically incorrect show, because it's just kind of who we are. I don't pride myself on that. I absolutely pride myself on it. I'm bringing your name into this.
We should discuss this.
Yeah,
I know what you're trying to say.
We like to. I mean, the phrase that I used before, untabooing the taboo, is what we like to try and do as well. It's if we're having a shit day, we can talk about anxiety. If we're having a good day, we can talk about fucking extremely politically incorrect content.
Jerking off in the gym.
Jerking off in the gym and being anxious while you're doing it. For sure. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Laurin.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. This was an awesome conversation, and I hope you, the listeners, enjoyed this as well.
For sure.
Thanks, Laurin. That's it's been great.
That's a wrap.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe. If you're already a subscriber, please leave us a rating and review. That'll help us climb the charts, which is really important. Also, guys, head to www.adventurefittravel.com/radio. You'll find the show notes there. Anything that was mentioned in the show will be listed there. And last but not least, head to quashcreative.com. Use the code radio for a free SEO report or report on your current or existing brand. Also, head to audibletrial.com/ADVF radio. Get your one free audiobook and 30 days of Audible. And last but not least, head to Adventure Fit Radio. Oh my God, I can't get these intro and outros right. Sorry, guys. And last but not least, head to www.adventurefittravel.com and use the code radio for 10% off. Fucking thank God I got it done. All right, see you next week.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.